So let's call this meeting to order. And also, everybody, please, we had a complaint, couldn't hear, so welcome, everybody. Glad to see people here. We are an advisory committee to the Board of Trustees, the Road Advisory Committee. We're not employees of the township. We're not elected officials. Well, Mike is, but McCready, but we're just volunteers. And so one of the things I wanted to say is that if you'll notice on the agenda, public comment we have scheduled at the end rather than at the beginning, what most are. That's so that you can hear what's being said, from the speaker, and then you can question what's being said today rather than have to start in the beginning without having heard what's going on. So that's why we do that. So we call the meeting to order. The first order of business is, we have attendance. We have a quorum, so we conduct business here. The approval, we have two meetings that we didn't, we have to approve the minutes of, two. The April 30th and also the May 14th. We didn't have the April 30th here at the last meeting. So we've all read them, I assume. We need a motion to approve.
I move to approve the minutes of April 30.
Okay.
Second it.
Moved and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, now the May 14th, same thing.
Motion to approve May 14th minutes?
Moved and seconded?
Seconded.
Okay, any discussion on that? Any changes? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, good. So, what we have tonight, this afternoon, excuse me, we have just so you know, we're in the process of getting information right now. This is the beginning of the whole process. We're just getting information from all different places to see where we are. Maybe in our minds we can figure out where we might want to go. But right now it's just information gathering. And so today we have Jason Thies, the Bloomfield Township Finance Director. Thies.
Thies with a T. Thies.
I apologize. I apologize. I'm sorry.
Everyone gets it wrong. It's all right.
Well, now I know. All right. Jason Thies. And he will be a Bloomfield Township Finance Director, and he's going to present something to us so we know some about where the money is coming from, going to, when it's involved roads. That's what we're only concerned about. So, Jason, you're up.
Thank you. And just real quick, a little history on me, since most of you here I've never met before. Been with the township for 17 years. First as a deputy finance director, and then as the last 11 as the finance director. So I watched some of the other meetings to kind of see what the committee's all about, and so I don't repeat things that have already been set up here. But I wanted to start with a couple of pie charts here. So the road fund has three main sources. Obviously the millage, which is about 55%. Road fund repayments, which would represent that contract with Oakland County, Road Commission for Oakland County. And then what you're probably not as familiar with that we need to cover today is that other big piece, that 31%, which is a transfer in. So we'll get into the interfund transfers in more detail later, but just so you keep that visual in mind, that's a big piece of the road fund. On the expense side, these are the 7 main categories. A big piece here, this 34% contracted services. So that's things like the paving that we contract out, the cape sealing, the street sweeping. We do some of our own street sweeping, but we also contract some of that out. The state highway maintenance, so the taking care of those medians and the mowings and the flowers and that type of stuff. So that's a big chunk. Then obviously you get into the costs of the current employees, the costs of the retirees, and then there's this sliver here. So for 2025, this capital outlay was only 2% of the budget. But that's going to go up and down based on what the needs are of the fund. So as an example, if I redid this for the fiscal year 2026 budget that we're now in, that 2% becomes 16% because we have 2 major trucks being replaced.
Jason, are the contracted services for Road Commission of Oakland County or private companies?
Oh, bid out, so whoever
Okay.
wins, yeah, private, whoever bids and gets it awarded. It's important to understand the millages and the limitations of those millages. So states generally limit growth of property taxes one of three ways, and it's important to know that Michigan, for whatever reason, decided to use all three ways to limit. So that's a big burden on our ability for those, for us to fund the operations. So rate limit is one way, which is basically for a township, we're capped at 10 mils. You've heard that, I think, a few times now. The assessment limit, so you have proposal A that's limiting the growth of that, puts a ceiling on it to inflation or 5%, whichever's less. And then also a levy limit. So they limit the amount of jurisdiction can collect year over year. So that's kind of where that Headley rollback comes into play. So for fiscal year '25, which just ended, March 31, the road millage that provided just under $3.5 million to that fund. So this, you'll see the blue box there, that's the road millage. So there's 7 millages listed here. These are all the millages that are subject to the 10 mil cap. I'll see if I can blow this up a little bit. So 3 public safety millages now, 1 road, safety path, general, and another general voted and a general that is allocated in senior services. So that blue line you can see back in 1976, the original approved amount was $1 mil. Since then, it's been rolled back. It's now 66.5 cents.
That's the millage.
Millage rate,
Yeah,
yep.
okay, got it. 0.67.
So all of those added up comes to this green circle, 9.95. So that's where you've probably heard that we're right up against our millage cap of 10 mils. What doesn't count against that are debt millages. So 2007 is an example where we went to the voters and asked to do campus construction bond debt, and so we built the senior service center, redid the fire station, DPW. Those are all things that don't apply to that 10 mil cap. So millages, like I just said, there's that 2007 campus construction that doesn't get counted. Another thing to keep in mind is that state statutes limit the amount of general obligation debt a governmental entity may issue to 10% of its SEV. So in that third bullet point, we point out we're at 0.88%, so we're well below what we're legally allowed to, but again, just because you're legally allowed to doesn't mean it's a good practice to follow. So when we have our credit rating agency calls every time we issue more debt, they do still, even with us being well below the legal limits, they continue to bring up the amount of debt we do have. It is still a concern. And they look at more than just general obligation debt or bonded debt. They're also adding in the SAD debt for each one of these road SADs we do, and they're adding in our long-term liabilities, which are our legacy costs for pension and retiree health care, which those two are not included in that state cap. But from a credit rating agency and looking at the fiscal responsibility and where you stand financially as a municipality, they do add those back in. So it is a concern I have in the back of my mind as we keep adding more of these special assessment debt. At what point will they say it's too much, and are we at risk of lowering our credit rating? So interfund transfers, it's important for you to understand the general fund, road fund, and public safety fund are very tightly intertwined, meaning they share the same revenue sources. And each year, based on what is needed in those three big main operating funds at the township, those transfers can fluctuate. So in a year like I mentioned earlier, there's in fiscal year '26, capital outlay for the road fund is going up to 16% of their budget. They have two big trucks coming in. So they're likely gonna get more of a transfer in from the general fund this year to help them pay for that, because none of their other revenue sources are going up. So over the past 10 years, the general fund has supported through transfers to the road fund totaling $11.4 million, with 1.9 of that 11.4 being in 2025, which was one of the larger transfers. And in fiscal year '26 that we're in right now is expected to be 2.7. So big reliance on the general fund. And so if you think about those three big funds, general, road, and public safety, if road fund now needs a bigger piece of that support, that means less in the general fund and less for public safety. Yeah.
Are those transfers increasing? That's what I hear you're saying?
Yes, they've been increasing over the years, but then, you may have a year where road fund doesn't have a lot of capital. Maybe we cut back on paving that year. We've also had trouble filling positions across all our departments, so we may planned on, like this 2.7 is what's budgeted, but let's say they have 3 positions that are open and something else happens. By year end, we may only have to give them 2 million of the 2.7. So it's a fluctuating number. So moving on, you may or may not be aware of this equipment and replacement fund that is out there. So right now, there's the balance of just over $22 million. So it's important to know, if that were ever brought up to you, what that means and what the restrictions are on those dollars. So those have been committed by the township board to be utilized for future capital outlay. The fund is allowed to exist per the state of Michigan, so we have to have our chart of accounts, and our funds we use have to follow the state's requirements. So they said you are allowed to have this equipment and replacement fund to set aside dollars for future capital, which is a good thing to be able to do. Yes?
How much of the 22 million is tied up in current actual equipment and not future equipment?
None of it.
None of it?
It's all future.
So
yes.
this is all future equipment?
Yep.
And is there any other way that you could finance that 22 million? Could you have a bond issue? I'm not saying you should, one should, but I'm just thinking about financially. If you have a bond issue, you could just say, okay, we're going to have a $22 million bond issue. Is that allowed, such a thing?
We've never financed equipment through bonding.
It would have to be a building, like, for instance, sorry to interrupt,
Yeah.
but Gary, we've been advised we need to build a new police station because we're so inadequate in our facilities. So let's say we decided to build a new police station, and it would cost us $40 million. What you're thinking about is we'd bond it and use this money to pay the bond, right? I agree. That way we don't have to take it out to the public. We can finance it in-house. Right. But if we were to buy a squad car, that's operational costs.
Yeah.
This is for capital investment.
It's a capital investment, yeah, okay. All right. Thank you.
Yes. So we do have significant current and future capital outlay. Capital outlay does include buildings, vehicles, furniture and fixture, and anything that you're going to depreciate. There are significant needs and budgetary pressures. If you look at our most recent 5-year capital projection, which is part of our fiscal year '26 budget book, the estimate from all the department heads shows we have $21 million in capital needs over the next 5 years, including fiscal year '26, so '26 through '30. That does not include
Any roads.
these other plans for
doesn't include
big
any
buildings,
roads.
no roads. So on that note, as you know, roads are owned by the county. They are not an asset of the township. So therefore, any funds spent to replace or improve them is not considered capital outlay. So that's probably the most important thing here is that's the disconnect between the purpose of this fund and what the state says it should be used for and allowed to be used for. Spending it on an asset that is not owned by the township is not it's not capital outlay. It's not ours to own, it's not ours to depreciate. Next few slides, and then I'm just about done, is the current and future financial summary. So some things to keep in mind. We are still under a corrective action plan related to our retiree health care liability, which was closed to new hires in 2011. So obviously that is a priority to keep funding that and getting that corrected and out of that oversight. The pension also closed to new hires in 2005. That is a concern every year because we get a new actuarial report every year by an independent actuary who takes into account what was the market performance last year. And so year to year, completely dependent on factors out of our control, like the stock market, we could get hit with a increase in what we are required to pay in. So they tell us our actuarially determined contribution each year. We've had good markets these last few years, so it's been pretty consistent. I haven't gotten the report yet for the next budget year. The market did pretty well, but as soon as we get another downturn, our annual $5 to $5.5 million contribution, which we're legally have to pay per the state, could easily go to 6, 7 in a year. So then if you think back to those interfund transfers, general fund, road fund, public safety fund have the most employees, so they're gonna pay the biggest piece of that contribution. Between the three of them, you're probably saying 80 to 85% of that $5 or $6 or $7 million hit. So then again, less resources to be able to allocate to those other areas when you have something like that you can't not pay. The 8 union contracts we have are, one is started and I hope all will be completed in this calendar year. A goal is to address recruitment and retention. Obviously the unions have seen great performance we've had since they signed the last contract 5 years ago. Interest rates on investments, so we've done really well these last few budget years, and that's helped contribute to that equipment fund when we're earning 4.5%, 5.5% on daily deposits in our money market. That's not going to continue forever, so that's another thing I'm keeping in mind as we look forward in a 5-year, 10-year projection is $4 million, $5 million earnings on investment income annually is not going to continue. I mean, it wasn't that long ago we were getting $500,000 for the entire year. So where we're going to end up in the next 5 years is yet to be seen, but we need to be cautious. So we've kind of covered this, that because of those things, the general fund will have less revenue to share, to transfer. Those liabilities could go up. So the township, in my opinion, is not yet in a position to provide significant funding to an asset that's we don't own with all these other things hanging out there without having to significantly cut from somewhere where you can cut. Like the ADC for the pension plan, you can't cut. It's got whatever it is, you got to pay it. We are still recovering from 2019 and trying to get staffing up to an appropriate level. we're working on filling positions. Just a couple of weeks ago, the latest update was we had 13 open police officer positions. It sounds like we've found some candidates, six or seven of them just now. And that last bullet point, I know I kind of sound like doom and gloom up here, but there is hope. The safety path millage, I think, is something to keep in mind. That's our only 5-year millage out there. So it's up for renewal in calendar 2028, which would be our 29-30 fiscal year. The township board, when they start discussing that, they could decide as an option to end the construction of that master safety path plan of new safety paths, which, if you think back to that earlier spreadsheet, that 44-cent mill would go away. Then you've got potentially 44 cents that can be increased to one of those other millages when they come up for renewal. With the caveat that when you increase a millage and you're not just renewing it at the current rate, you have to disclose it's a renewal with an increase, but that's kind of getting into the weeds. Yes.
What percent of the initial millage for the safety path is completed based upon what they had as for a plan? I mean, is it 60% completed?
That I don't know.
Okay, because it'd be, I don't want to rob Peter to pay Paul.
We
I
can-
just have one other question. Do you think 13% retiree benefits is comparable with other places?
I think you'll find it all over the board.
Because it seems pretty heavy, if you can use such a word, if one can use it.
It's not out of the ordinary if you're comparing us to other municipalities. I mean, we were in the ballpark for however many decades, competing with all of our neighbors. But that is one of the reasons. One was closed in 2005 and the next one in 2011. But even with closing it to new hires, we still have active people working that still are owed those benefits when they get into retirement. So these are going to be going on many more decades before you finally have that last person.
Yeah, the estimate is 60 years, I believe, 40 or 60 years until it's flushed out. And we actually just had one of our pensioners pass away at 100 and, what was he,
105.
105.
Yeah.
Retired for what, 50, 55 years?
Yeah.
Kind of throws off the calculations there a little bit.
I don't, that one, yeah, someone else will have to worry about that, 60 years from now.
I'll be long gone from here even by the time, there'll be still people on that.
I'll still be talking about your millage.
The township, another thing, in 2032-33 is the magical year. That year, we will be done paying the pension obligation bond debt, which helped diversify and get our pension funding sustainable on a it's done wonders for us being able to get better investment earnings on those funds. So that is, now this 5 million is on top of the 5 million I talked about. That was the actuarially determined contribution. That was just paying what is required each year to get our liability down. This $5 million is actually paying the bonds that we took out. So these will be paid off in 32-33, which then means you've got $5 million freed up across those three main funds that can be
32-30.
Yeah, can be used for. I mean, it seems like it's far out, but it's really not. It'll be here before you know it. Also that same time frame, the campus construction bond debt, which is a millage that the residents are paying, will be paid off as well. Now that doesn't free up anything towards your 10 mil cap, but anytime a millage falls off of a tax bill, that's a positive thing. So that right now that's a 33-cent mill that
Well, that's pretty significant.
that goes away. And then lastly, the township could have the retiree health care liability funded above that 40%. So that's the magical number. That once we get over that, we're no longer under the corrective action plan. Right now, we're just below 30%. Doesn't necessarily mean we all of a sudden have freed up money because, you know, one hit to the market and we could fall back to 32%, 35%. So we'd still want to keep the foot on the gas funding it, but we're getting there. Any additional questions?
Yeah, I have a couple that I want to ask you about. First of all, the pie chart that you showed,
Yeah.
14% other. Is that sort of like just a fund, a buffer fund, or just in case you need them? I mean, is it, what's included in it? Is anything specifically included in that, is what I'm trying to get at? Or is it just, that's extra, just in case it's needed for someplace else?
So that's a accumulation of a lot of other smaller categories that I didn't want to show 1% here, 2% here.
Okay,
So
got it.
other operational costs, for example, off the top of my head, like property and liability insurance.
All right.
You got to have it. It's part of running the department.
So there's a lot of little things that add up, and you
Yeah.
just put it together, okay.
Yes.
You said the rate limit is 10 mils. That's every 10 mils. Is that the same for townships, for villages, for cities, for any jurisdiction?
That I'm unaware of. I don't know. Cities, yeah, our assessor
Okay.
says cities at
That's
20.
okay, that's what I had, all right, thank you. Now, right now we have .67 rounding up, .66, whatever it is, but .67 mils for roads. Raises 3.4 million. So approximately 1 mil would be approximately 6 million, do you think? About?
Yeah, we're at about 5.5 billion right now. So 1 mil is about, yeah,
Okay.
5.
About, okay, give or take.
Yeah.
Close, okay. And I asked that because when we were told at the very first meeting, well, the second meeting, but the first meeting we had a presentation, that if we had $6 million a year, we could make significant inroads in replacing roads in the township that are severe, that are bad, without SADs, they could be replaced. And so what I'm trying to get at, and I coupled it to the 20 mil, if we were a city and we were able to use 20 mils plus, we might be able to free up enough so that we could, as Birmingham does, as Troy, as other places do, use that money to lower the cost to the individual homeowners, residents in SADs, to actually replace roads. Because then, of course, we would own the roads and we would be allowed to do that. Is that a fair assumption, do you think?
Yes.
Okay. All right, there was one other thing, and I have to find, I don't think I have it anymore here. I don't know what I did with it. I had one other question, but you know what? If it comes up, I'll come back to it later. That's okay. Thank you very much. That's
Yeah.
what I wanted to know.
And I guess keeping in mind on that note of we've multiple times before me and during my time here, we've looked at whether it makes sense to change from a township structure to a city. And where it seems to always get hung up is the roads. So yeah, you'd be able to have more millage money, but you still have to get that approved by the voters.
Right.
Of whether they want to spend that money there. And then by doing that, you now are taking on ownership of all of those roads that are in really bad.
Right.
So it's like you're buying in at the worst time of the situation, and then you're stuck with, and I'm sure the road commissioner, like, here, have them, like, yeah, you deal with it.
Well,
like-
the last time that analysis was done, from the information we've gotten, I have it here someplace, but it was many years ago. It wasn't recently. It was like, could be 15 or 20 years ago, that analysis of city to township was made. Is that about right, do you think? I have it here someplace.
Well, I've been here 17, and so, yeah, it could be 12 to 15, yeah.
Right, okay. So a lot of things have changed, I think, but that's to be determined. But the other thing, now you said, now I lost a train of thought. Okay, I'll come back to it if I remember what it is. Thanks. Any other questions, comments from here?
No, that was
Okay, then
good.
you know what, then
Thanks.
at this point, then what I'd like, Is that all right if we then open it up to public comment with questions?
Jeff, one other
Yes.
thing, our assessor's here, Darren Kratz.
Right.
And Darren, can you just come up for a minute?
Oh, sure.
Darren's the revenue guy.
Okay.
Because he's the assessor, the tax man we read about in the Bible. Now we have a face.
Yeah, but I think they were outlawed.
Maybe you can tell us a little about our revenue stream for the last few years and what your estimates are briefly.
Well, our revenue stream for the last several years has been pretty good. A couple things that go into making that up are new construction. And as you drive around the township, you see all these brand-new houses and commercial buildings and those types of things going up. So that's a bonus. The last 2 years, we've had the 5% CPI, actually 23 and 24, our CPI increase was 5%. So what that means to the residents is your taxable value is going to go up 5% because that's the cap, right? So the actual CPI in 23 was, I think, 7.9%, but because of the cap with the Headley Amendment, the most we could raise it was the 5%. So that coupled with the new construction that's going on in the township has been pretty beneficial for the township. What we see now, we still see a pretty good real estate market as far as sales and things go. But now we're starting to get back into bigger rollbacks, which Jason commented on in his presentation, which is rolling the millage rate back. So the better you do, the more you have to roll it back. So yes, we've had a good year, a good couple years, but we've also had to roll the millage rates back a little bit more than we would if it were just I guess just an average, average type year. Not a whole lot of construction. The real estate sales aren't, as strong as they are now. So every time we always think we're getting ahead, we always get bigger rollbacks, which that, as for an example, if like last year, we were at about 5%, 5.5% increase in our taxable value. Well, after the rollbacks, where'd we end up? Like 4.5, 4.3 or something like, and that's percentage increase in taxable value. So, every time we feel like we're doing a little bit better, everything gets rolled back a little bit more, and we just get incrementally ahead. We don't, see the big increases in revenue. So, it's kind of hard to tell right now where we're going to be at next year or this upcoming year, 2026 for us. I would imagine the CPI is going to be low again, but new construction is doing pretty well. So I guess time will tell on that. So
Thank you. But I do remember the point that I wanted to bring up just quickly. You said if we became a city, then we're going to be getting broken down roads. That we would own broken down roads.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is though that if we did do that, yes, we'd get those broken down roads. But right now we're asking residents to pay $40,000 to $60,000 each to repair them. If we were a city and we owned those, the way the finances work, it would be way less for each individual in an SAD, for instance, to pay for that. For instance, I'm pretty sure, the way I understand it, Birmingham, for instance, replaced 2 roads, Arlington and Shirley, completely. And the residents would pay, the residents' participation was only about $10,000 per home. Whereas here, Bloomfield Village, we know they're doing it, they're between 40 and 60-something thousand. So, yes, we would be getting decrepit roads, but we would have the ability, because of the way the finances work and the millage work, to make less of a imposition on an individual home, I think.
Well,
That's my reasoning for asking that.
The county road commission's not gonna fix them.
No, I know that, and that's why I'm saying.
So
if we own them, even though
you
they're
could sit there and
decrepit and
say, well,
broken.
we don't own that, but we have to drive on it. This way you have control, whether you like the pay the amount. I mean, that's what we're trying to figure out here.
Yeah, okay. That's what I was getting
I
at.
don't think
Okay,
it's a bad
thanks.
thing. I don't think it's a bad thing to take them over.
Well,
I wouldn't rule it out.
I guess
I'll put him in
who wants to
charge.
take over something that's decrepit and broken? But we're asked to pay for them anyway.
Yeah, but at least you gotta fix it. Yeah, exactly. You don't get any benefit if you give them, if you give the
Okay.
county $500,000, they're not gonna give you $500,000 in value.
Okay, thanks. Okay, any questions? Any others? Well, thank you very much.
All right,
Now, what
very
I'd like to do is open it up for public comment, questions, and the way it works is you come up, have to name, address, so we have it on the record. You get 3 minutes, and we'll time that. So we can open it, we'd like you to keep it to
Something less.
questions to the people that, what we've just heard, but that's up to you. So, I just want to do this here, put the timer on. Stopwatch. Okay, very good.
Susan has it.
Oh, okay, I didn't know you had that. All right, great. I don't have to worry about it.
Good
Okay.
evening all, once again, my name is Mike Byrne, 3830 Brookside. I'm a resident of Bloomfield Township. Show of hands, how many of you have read the research materials I've sent Jeff Saltz via email about a month and a half ago? Okay, great. I'm here to strongly urge this board to accelerate its focus on developing a comprehensive township road millage package. One that moves behind the fractured, inequitable, and clearly unsustainable model of special assessment districts. And to that point, I would say that I think there's further investigation required regarding, as I mentioned at our very first appearance back in April, the 10 mil cap is actually related to the operating costs, not necessarily a true hard ceiling wherein voter approval could actually raise that up to an additional 20 mils if approved for dedicated resource funding. Let's be clear, there's no magical pot of money coming to fix our roads, not from the federal government, not from the state, not from the county. Infrastructure funding has been deprioritized for decades, and Bloomfield Township is a reflection of that, with literally crumbling roads. If we truly want safe, well-maintained roads, we must have one option, and only one option: we fund them ourselves. This board has now heard directly from the Road Commission for Oakland County, Township's own Director of Public Works, and obviously Finance Director here this evening. This message is unanimous. There's simply not enough funding to meet even basic maintenance needs, let alone larger upgrades residents expect. Now I get no one likes to hear new taxes, but let's be honest, the only alternative is to a well-structured, fairly distributed township-wide millage package is a future of more road failures, more inequity, and even higher costs. If one-off dollars ever come from other external government sources, great, but they must be treated as a bonus, not a replacement for a reliable local funding model. The time for waiting is over. The board should be leading now by modeling viable millage scenarios, estimating revenue, and preparing a clear, transparent message to win voter support. A smart, comprehensive package must include these 5 elements at a minimum. 1, a township-wide capital millage for full replacements, overlays, and paving currently gravel roads. 2, a fully funded maintenance millage. It's supposed to be 1 mil, but it's closer to 2/3, as Noah Mihalski has explained. An infrastructure reserve fund to guard against inflation and unlock future grants. 4, a construction impact fund via mandatory bonds or fees to ensure new development contributes its fair share. And 5, a fair phase-in plan for those still paying or just finished paying SADs. With coordinated planning and township-wide approval, we can fix roads faster, save money through scale, reduce bond-driven liabilities, unlock greater SALT deductions on our income taxes, eliminate the SAD lottery that distorts home equity, and give every resident clarity about their street's future. Time is of the essence. Every delay means higher costs, greater frustration, and declining trust. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Please.
Hi, Nancy Lentini, 518 Brownlee Court. We're off of Square Lake Road near Updike, a tiny sub of only 20 houses between Hugo Hills and Bloomfield Crossing. So the subdivision is only 25 years old. 2 roads, Sequoia Court, Brownlee Court, totally crumbling like everyone else. How often do the street sweepers come for the township? Once a year in the spring, or is it twice a year? Does anyone know?
That would be a question for Noah, our DPW director, that we
Okay.
could get back to you on.
Okay, no problem. So, last fall, our tiny sub of 20 houses, hired someone to come in and use blowers to sweep up all the gravel on our streets, because we figured the crumbling gravel is just creating more crumbling gravel every time you drive over it. And then the spring sweeping came from the township, which we always look forward to. And now we might as well start all over again. So we're trying to dig into our pockets, but we're just so small, it's not going to make a dent. So with our HOA meeting coming up Sunday night at our house, since my husband has been the president forever, what hope can you give us in terms of, are we looking for outside money? Are we looking, give us some hope. What can I carry back to them?
Okay, I think, as you said, that would be Noah's, right?
Yeah, and I can tell you just some of the steps that I've talked to legislators about. And I've gone to Haley Stevens, our congresswoman, about asking Congress to make our SADs tax deductible on our federal income tax because of the amounts that we're paying. And it goes on your February tax bill, which can be anywhere between an additional $4,000 to $5,000 right now over 15 years. And then by creating this road advisory committee, we're going to try and figure out a long-term approach. And almost I think the outline that Michael just gave us is probably what we're all thinking about in our head is I think he listed 5 points. And
Made a lot of sense.
Made a lot of sense. It's kind of an outline of, I think, what we first discussed. Not just including the roads that need to be fixed, but the people who have paid into these SADs to relieve them of some of that obligation that's been created. Because, like, as a supervisor, and Jason brought it up, every time we take on an SAD, that counts towards our debt in our community, which could have an effect on our bond rating, which it just doesn't make any sense.
Okay, and would there be priority for larger roads than the internal subdivision roads? Or-
When you say, are you talking about like Lone Pine, Lasser,
Yes.
Eastway, something like
Right,
that?
yeah.
Well, so far, the county's been pretty good about taking care of those main roads.
Okay.
It's the interior roads, the neighborhood roads that are, like you said, crumbling.
Yes,
And we're getting emails constantly, every day.
okay.
I think that the focus of this group, when we set it up in our mission statement, which is published, is on the subdivision roads. That's what we're really looking at, not Blosser, not,
Great.
Square Lake or anything. We
Great.
want your street, my street. That's the focus of this group.
Right.
How can we do that?
Super, thank you all. for your
And
time.
we hope to get money from the state. That's what they're debating right now in Lansing. I think that's going to be one of their big budget problems. But as Michael indicated, we don't know what we could or end up getting. And I've been in touch with my colleagues there about trying to send the money directly to us. Skip the road commission, just give it to us and let us spend it. But we don't know where we're going to end up.
I can answer you, I got something here, Sue just gave it to me, on a full round in curb and gutter subs in spring and fall, so it's twice a year, as needed basis for everything else, meaning if something happens, you probably could get it again if you need something, but it's scheduled for twice a year.
Super, thank you very much, keep at it.
Thank you,
Thank
thanks
you.
for the comment. Next, thank you.
Hi, Stuart Harmon, 7094 Cathedral, Birmingham Farms subdivision. Just kind of two questions. One, the last couple years, because our subdivision roads are horrible, the last couple years they did manage to do some limited capping, which was greatly appreciated. So the question is there any money for any of that for this year?
There is some money. Jason, what did we budget? I think we only budget for
$1
about,
million a year, I thought it was.
yeah, but we only can budget for like 2 miles of roads out of 200
Yeah.
200 miles.
Yes, the Public Works Director has money back in there for, I guess, Band-Aids, cape sealing, paving, fixing those, nothing to the extent of digging up a road and starting
Right.
from scratch. That's all contracted out, but yeah, there's, I don't want to say the number because I'm not 100% sure, but we're back to having a number in there comparable to pre-recession funding, because we had some decent years here.
Okay, so that's a short-term partial help, because some of these roads are bad, you worry about the suspension on your car. So that's good news. The other quick question was, like Wing Lake Road, who does the street sweeping for that? Is that the township? Because when I called, they said, oh no, it's the county.
Okay. Jason, welcome back.
You should just stay up here.
We do have our own street sweeper, but we can't do the whole township, so we contract out, which is what you just heard, twice a year is contracted out. I believe the company's called G&S, Street Sweeping. And then we have our own street sweeper, which probably handles the one-off instances that come up.
Okay, because it was when I called about Wing Lake, because the sewers, the drainage sewers get all backed up, like they have since, I don't think they've been swept in since, I can't remember. But throughout the winter and everything, they're all blocked up.
We'll make a
And
note,
then
look into
things-
that for you.
Things get flooded and you try and cross the sidewalk and you're walking through 4 inches of water. But when I called the township, they said, oh no, you need to call the county. So, that was Wing Lake. Wing Lake and
Yeah,
14 Mile, all that area.
It may be because of where the location is and the cause of it, if it's something that's not, I don't know, if it's stormwater drain versus a sewer drain,
It
like,
was
yeah.
just stormwater drains on
Okay.
on the street, but they're just all, you go down there now, they're all just caked. So, I don't know. Anyway, thank you.
You mentioned the patching or the
Capping.
overlay, the capping, and
Yes.
talk about Cape Seal and all that other thing. The thing to remember, that's only short term. What we're looking at is
Oh, I-
long-term, permanent fixes.
I totally agree, because
So-
we tried to do a SAT in our neighborhood, and it failed.
Well, we did too.
So, but, besides having to, you try and take a walk down the street, you turn your ankle in some of
Right.
these potholes. So, we're grateful for anything we can get until
Yeah.
the big long-term solution is there.
Thank you very much. Please.
My name is Judy Ballant, 2778 Aldgate Drive, runs into St. Hugo's School. And we did a SAD paving. And it took from 2011, when the householders, the people wanted the roads fixed. And it was, my husband was the head of the Hickory Grove Hills homeowners, and it took till 2016 to get it done. But we had to have everybody in on it, and as people thought about it, mothers could not take strollers down the street to the school. Kids couldn't ride their bikes. People couldn't walk if they had to do exercise. They had a hip replacement, and the doctor says you have to walk. One of our neighbors had to go into Birmingham to walk. So finally, everybody agreed, and we did. Leo Savoy was the township fellow, and he talked to John about it. We did get it done, and it was done in 2016. Some of us are still paying on it, so we don't want the township to make us pay more. And this is what he left. He died in 2018, but he got the work done. And it was a hard job because a lot of people have to buy in. But the other thing that came out from it is that if you don't have to, you have 15 years to pay it. If you sell your house, the next owner, you don't have to pay it before you sell your house. So that was very helpful. So it can be done, and it isn't easy, but the people who have done it already don't want to be
Pay twice.
charged for something other people are doing. And you're right, we do own that property in front of our house, and you take care of it more when you know you've paid for it. So, again, thank you for the opportunity to let me.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
anybody has questions, I've got it.
Yep.
John left a little bit of everything. In fact, we even had a drain fixed, and he took a picture of that drain in front of our house because that got fixed. Another one was, so he was happy, and now young people moved in, and they don't want a homeowners association because they don't want to deal with other people's problems. So
Judy, what kind of price
Good
did you
luck.
guys have to pay in 2016?
Pardon?
What was the price per house?
8,000,
Okay.
Boy, I wish I
but
could take it any day.
people
That's
with
what we-
families
Right.
and,
We tried to get it for 15
you
and
can
didn't
look
get
at
it.
the houses,
Yeah.
they're not massive mansions, but, people love their streets. And the people in Colberry Hills are walking their dogs on our streets.
Because the streets are
They're
nice.
so nice,
Sure.
yeah.
It's good for a neighborhood. So, good luck.
All right, thanks, Judy.
That's, what you brought up a good point, and we've talked about that. The fact that if you've already had a SAD, you don't want to get milled now to pay, to fix everybody else's roads. So we're well aware of that, and that's something we have to do. But the other thing is, you just brought up something else, is that you said that other people are walking, they're walking through your subdivision, and in our subdivision, several roads come, everybody from outside uses it because that's how you get out,
Yeah.
but we pay for it. They don't. So there's another inequity. They're using the roads,
Yeah.
but we're paying for it. So these are all things that have to be worked out. You're right.
Yeah, we have kids, we have a nice hill going down to St. Hughes, and the kids on their bikes, they love our hill.
Yeah.
And we have circle drives, and they drive through and go back down the hill, so,
Well, we-
I mean, it's
thank you.
all right.
We got that.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks, Judy.
Go ahead,
Yeah,
sure.
Sorry, just one additional comment / question regarding SAD specifically. So, if somebody could speak to the SAD transferability at time of sale, I understand it's allowable, but it's not guaranteed. It's essentially a negotiation between buyer and seller,
Right.
which I think is an important distinction as compared to a property tax, which is not something you debate at the time of closing or
Right.
with your real estate agents, right? And so that's another, I think, important distinction to make.
Well, the seller and the
between two.
owner would have to debate who's gonna pay off the liability on the property.
Correct, yeah, for an
At the time
SAD,
that- At that
whereas,
transaction time, yeah,
yeah,
you're
which
right.
is a disadvantage to an SAD being, essentially
Yeah,
a de
yeah.
facto lien against that property, so.
A lot of
Maybe-
disadvantages.
Let's see if you, did you want to answer that?
Well, I guess.
Go ahead, sure,
I'd
let's
at least
hear it.
comment on it. So as you know, before that legislation was passed with our current supervisor and our former supervisor, any SADs, especially road SADs, had to be satisfied at closing. So it would come out of the proceeds of the sale. Since then, the lien or the outstanding debt is assumable by the new purchaser. From what we understand, and we don't get a ton of feedback on this because we get the information that the sales happened and so forth, but we don't really get and haven't had much feedback from either the seller or the buyer saying, okay, well, there's a $20,000 SAD balance still owed. We negotiated a $20,000 less sale price to make up the difference, or did they do 10 and 10, or did the buyers? And some title companies, from what we understand, are just still satisfying the outstanding balance at the closing. They're not aware of the legislation, or they choose to ignore it, or whatever the case is. But, so you've run the whole gamut of, going from the way it used to be, where you just had to satisfy it, or to some sort of a negotiation at the closing table, so, or when they made an offer on the property, so.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate the clarification, but again, my point was simply to make the distinction between a property tax being something that's not even up for debate essentially during a real estate transaction. It is what it is in a sense.
Yeah.
Did you have a question, comment?
Our subdivision replaced its roads, through its SAD about 10 years ago.
Okay.
And transferability was not an option.
Okay,
When you closed, the current homeowner had to pay up.
right.
So maybe, some of the proceeds went to, directly to pay for it, but, they had to come up with the money.
Yeah,
They couldn't transfer it.
Yeah, exactly, and right, up until that legislation had been passed, it was, if you owed $20,000 on a road SAD, it came out of the proceeds of the sale.
Yeah, it depends on the market. If it's a hot market in a hot area and people want that house, and you say the house is X amount, and the SAD is in there, either you take it or you don't, because there's somebody else who's gonna take it. So, or if it's in terrible, then you got,
Yeah.
but it's at least there's a way to negotiate back and forth.
There is, but unfortunately, we don't hear back from the residents. very often. Every so often we do, but, you know, we've not heard enough information from the residents to say, oh yeah, this is the way it's happening. They're negotiating this, the SAD price and the sale price. So it's hard to tell, but you get it, you know, like it used to be where you had to have it done, and like it is now where you can negotiate.
Thank you very much. Good clarification. Please. Thanks, Michael.
Hi, my name's Kathy Kay, and I live at 1984 Hunters Ridge Drive in the Fox Hill subdivision. Kind of talking about people walking on walkable roads, and we own the streets. We have two condo associations that flank us. We have the Georgian townhomes that have a cut through, I believe it's on Belton, and then we have the Fox Hills condos, which cut down Bootmaker. And so these two different condo neighborhoods cut through the neighborhood, but we're responsible for the street. And that is something I sent to the county and asked them about, and they said that's something I'd have to talk to about the township, and whether or not we could put a, whatever, just a guardrail or something up, because if we're gonna come back to being, right now we have a special assessment for a pool that we're 2 years into, so there's gonna be no SAD for at least another 3 years if we were to do that. But then again, why would people cut down Bootmaker to cut down Hunter's Ridge to get out? It's not walking, they're driving our streets, you know, and we no longer have the school now because that was demolished, the Bloomfield Towns. So just something I was wondering about, is that something we could do sooner than later?
So you want a barricade there?
Well, people, it doesn't, the people on
I'd have to go look
Bootmaker,
at it,
yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
is that a condominium? Are you talking about, is it the
They're-
roads owned by the condominium or the,
The
or they-
Bootmaker
or they-
itself is in our subdivision.
it's a subdivision?
We are Fox Hills, but then there's the Fox Hills condos.
Okay,
And they come down and they cut down Bootmaker or on the spinning wheel, and they come down our subdivision and then.
so
and
your
out.
roads, they're just public roads?
Yeah. Well,
Okay,
no.
because you used the word you own them, you said before.
Well, I
So-
thought we were responsible for the roads in front of our house.
Okay, but you don't own, they're county roads?
Right,
Okay,
right,
all right, got
right.
it.
But so I guess that's what I'm trying to understand, is that I want the answers for people that ask the question. That's all I'm trying to find out. Is it even a plausible thing that they would do something like that? I didn't know if it's
Well,
something
you know,
they had.
we just found out from the last meeting, we had the road commissioner here, that there's a policy, for instance, we didn't even, nobody knew, we didn't know about speed bumps.
Yeah.
That they have a policy, and he's forwarded, I think we all got it.
Yes, I asked the same, that was my second
So,
question I asked
but,
them.
yeah, but up until now, I've been here 46 years.
Right.
And I've been told all along, no, we won't allow it, period.
Right.
Now all of a sudden, it's a policy. So now maybe there is a
And it
policy
was
to
from
do other things.
2019, that policy that you probably got, because I just received it myself. I had the same
Yes,
question.
that's correct.
Yeah,
About that-
so
about that.
I had the same question about the speed bumps, and, again, like, well, I don't know how that would work with installing them or with snow removal and all that kind of thing, but we have a couple long stretches, and we have the community pool, and the
Pavement.
speed is a concern on some of those streets.
Well, the policy if you read the thing, it said there are certain requirements you have to meet.
Yeah, like you have to, like,
1,000 cars a
1,000 cars
day,
have to-
and
yeah.
the speed, whatever it is. So, but
Right.
I have no idea, but you know.
So for the speed bumps, for us to come down Bootmaker, there's not 1,000 cars that come out of the condos.
No.
So then that would dictate we can't do the speed bump, so then would the option be to put up a guardrail?
Yes.
And again, I'm not for or against it, I just want to be able to have answers for people.
Well, one of the things that, in the mission statement here, of what we're here for, is also to see how we can get more autonomy for our roads. So we can do some of these things, some other things, I don't know, maybe whatever, guardrail or speed humps or barricade closing off certain streets so they can't cut through, I don't know. But that's part of what we're looking at. So the answer is, we don't know.
Okay,
Right
no,
now,
that's
we
fine.
don't know right now.
Yeah.
So,
Well, within our subdivision, we're fine, but having two
Yeah.
condo associations come through, that's the question.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I don't see anybody else jumping up, so let's bring it back to the committee. For any comments, anybody have anything they want to, about what we heard today, or anything? Or The next item on the agenda would be items not on the agenda, meaning anything that you want to maybe bring up for future. We put on another agenda, something you wanted to just talk about. Anybody?
Slug away at this.
Okay. Then I think that we're done. We've got some good information today. I think that was really good. Thank you, guys. Thank you both very, very much.
Motion to
Very good.
adjourn?
Motion to
Do we have
adjourn,
make a
yeah.
motion?
Second.
Okay, thank you.
Motion to.
Yeah.